So you deal with issues of climate change. You had a long career in the military where you also dealt with these issues. When you first heard that the president's decision that we were pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, what was your thought?
Not surprised, primarily because that was one of his campaign promises. I was a little shocked that the emboldened nature by which he presented his case showed, from my perspective, an extreme misunderstanding of the entire concept of what the Paris Accord really provides for us as a nation and a globe. And I think that the characterization of his reason was, for all practical purposes, from my perspective, a complete lack of leadership.
I think we think of these issues as really coming to the forefront in the Obama administration, but back in 2005, while you were on active duty, President Bush gave you the Presidential Award for Leadership in Federal Energy Management for your efforts to basically look at energy management back then in the Navy. Why does the military even care about these issues, and do they?
Well, I think it's important to understand when I was brought here to figure out how to reduce the costs associated with shore infrastructure so that those dollars could actually be sent forward to support the war fighting effort. And from a business perspective, you take a look at your largest cost centers and you begin to focus on those cost centers. Well, guess what the three largest cost centers were? Energy, water, and waste.
So how has the military's view on climate change evolved since back in 2005?
Well, I can say that in 2005 we really weren't talking about climate change as you know it. But I think that what you've seen over the course of time is a realization from a strategic perspective that climate change is real. And it's happening on a global scale, and there are significant impacts to our national security.
All right, so give me a couple of those. What are some of the things that the military, when they think of climate change, what worries them?
One of the best examples is Bangladesh. Within the next 10 years, 30 million refugees will be considered by the UN's condition climate refugees. Bangladesh is sinking, and it will, in its time frame, cause geopolitical instability in the region. We're going to have to figure out how to get there from here. And that's just one example because there are many in the Pacific.
So the military is out there, they're looking at these issues, they're adding up the costs. Does pulling out of Paris, does that make a difference to what the military is doing?
Well, I don't think, as a whole, unfortunately, I think that he thinks that pulling out of Paris will have an effect. The truth of the matter is, we're not in it for the politics of whatever it is he thinks that we're in it for, and the national policies in order to create the strategic planning that occurred over the course of the last 10 years, not 8 years. So we've been doing this for more than 10 years, is still there. It's still present.
But does that change the debate? The big budget coming up here, if you're trying to get money to address some of these issues or to mitigate them, does that make it harder?
It will in some cases make it harder to mitigate.
Is it going to make it very hard to discuss these issues over the next 4 years?
I think it's going to make, I think the great part about this is more than 200 cities signed an accord in Paris. Okay, and San Diego is one of them, Washington, New York, DC, Boston, San Francisco, Oakland. 200 cities across the country have all signed on to the agreement. And then you've got 193 different countries who are all part of this process, in which if you take a look at the total, is it going to become harder? I think it's actually going to become a different conversation.
All right, well, let's end on optimism then. Why not? Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Steve.
All right.